You're watching Corn TV, Channel 6.
The Great Flood of '93. A state capital is underwater. Thousands in the Midwest are homeless, and more rain is on the way.
In Somalia, another U.S.-led attack on a renegade warlord. More than a dozen are killed, including several journalists.
And off the coast of Mexico, hunger, disease, and desperation. What to do about 3 shiploads of Chinese immigrants?
This is the CBS Evening News. With Dan Rather in the Mississippi Valley and Connie Chung in New York.
The mighty Mississippi. There isn't a dry eye in the word. It means big river, and the river is growing bigger by the minute. Good evening from Grafton, Illinois. Along the overdrawn banks of the Mississippi, the floodwaters now have driven tens of thousands of people out of their homes and off their farms all over the Midwest. There was a break from the rain today, but just a break, because there is more to come. One of the hardest hit areas is Des Moines, Iowa. Correspondent Scott Pelley is there.
The flood of the century crippled Iowa's capital city. Thousands of Des Moines residents have left their homes, and with the water treatment plant swamped, 300,000 people have no running water.
It's almost kind of scary, you know, because there's nothing that comes out, and you start to think of all the things you use water for.
They lined up all day for water trucked in by fire departments and the National Guard.
You really take a lot for granted until you don't have it.
Every trickle of water was precious.
This used to be an old horse trough.
Downtown Des Moines stopped dead in its tracks. High-rises were fire hazards with no running water. Some businesses, like this lumber company, set up shop in the street.
Those things that don't kill us make us stronger.
And it's going to be a long time before Des Moines is back to normal. At least 5 weeks before there's clean drinking water from the tap, and probably August before downtown dries out. In the countryside, more farms are being inundated. Damage estimates range up to $2 billion and counting. Even wildlife is being pushed from its home. In St. Louis County, hundreds more are leaving.
It's more than I can bear, and I know I'm just worn out. I just can't help it.
Fred Hammerschmidt saved the memories of his late wife.
That's it, kid. When it rains, it pours.
Throughout the flooded region, at least 70,000 people have left their homes, and the water's still rising. In Des Moines, they're preparing new lines of defense. You think the sandbags will work?
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Well, I don't know, but it could because I never seen a flood before. Me and my sister haven't.
In fact, no one here has ever seen a flood like this, and they won't see the worst of it until the river's crest next week. Scott Pelley, CBS News, Des Moines.
The mighty Mississippi is unquestionably rising to a record crest. The high water mark not expected before the weekend at the earliest. Here in St. Louis, the flow behind me is incredible. Here you can feel the river's strength, power, and danger. The flow here is 4 times normal, 700,000 cubic feet of water a second, rushing in front of St. Louis's Gateway Arch. Eventually, the Great Flood of '93 will cost billions of taxpayer dollars. So many are asking, hey, what happened to the levees, dams, and reservoirs we already paid for? Why isn't the river being controlled? Just a few days ago, this was all rich farmland. Now, mile after mile is knee-deep in despair. The cities, towns, and farms that dot these riverbanks were supposed to be high and dry, protected by levees. These are the dikes that were supposed to be the stopper. But look at them now. One by one, they filled and spilled, fallen to the might of the Mississippi. The problem may be too many levees. As the land along the Mississippi was developed, more and more dikes were built for protection. Suddenly comes record rainfall in the Midwest, all eventually draining into the Mississippi, and instead of allowing the water to flow naturally, the levees downstream keep water backed up and bottlenecked. Something had to give. What's happened here? I mean, why are we having all this hell?
Mother Nature has decided that she wants to show that the Mississippi ultimately is in charge. But what has happened?
Colonel Jim Craig is commander of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers here. He says the best of the levees are actually saving lives and millions of dollars.
Our estimate in the St. Louis district alone, 155 million in damage, 1.26 billion in avoided damages.
Again, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Your contention is that if you didn't have the levees and you didn't have the reservoir system the Corps of Engineers built, that the flooding would be yet again worse than it is now.
Yes, that's what our analyses show.
Caught in the swirling attack of the advancing flood, city streets soon resemble turbulent canals.
Before the levees, nothing was safe. Floods were a costly way of life all along the Mississippi. But now many scientists believe additional interference by man will only mean more floods, more losses, because man has tried too hard to fool Mother Nature.
All around the country, if you look in good data, you'll find that floods are becoming more and more frequent, and it's part of our own doing.
Now, most big cities along the Mississippi have huge levees that can hold back the surging river. Unfortunately, that can send the water to smaller, less protected towns like here in Grafton, Illinois. Vice President Gore stopped here in Grafton today on a tour of Midwest flood damage, and what he saw, he said, shocked him. Gore said, and I quote, "You can't even tell where the Mississippi ends and the farmland begins." Property damage is not the only thing Midwesterners have to be concerned about tonight. There is also a potential health risk in the floodwaters. As health correspondent Dr. Bob Arnott reports, officials are recommending an ounce of prevention.
Raw sewage. 1 million gallons of it a day are being dumped into the mighty Mississippi River from this waste disposal plant in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, because floodwaters have overrun the facility. We called state health departments and found the same thing is happening in at least 24 cities in 6 Midwestern states. Health officials fear conditions are ripe for an outbreak of disease.
All flood water is contaminated water. All flood water has some concentration of germs in it, and people the entire length of the Mississippi River need to take precautions.
Officials are warning residents to avoid unnecessary contact with contaminated floodwater. Just the smallest cut in the skin can be a pathway to serious illnesses, including hepatitis, diphtheria, and tetanus. Yet some people have no choice. They're knee-deep in filthy water, trying to save their homes.
There is a real good chance that, they could become infected with the tetanus, and it is a life-threatening disease.
Health officials are giving thousands of free hepatitis and tetanus vaccines all across the flood area. In rural towns, where older residents are stranded, the vaccines are coming to them, and for good reason. People here rely on well water for their drinking supply. We found that more than a third of 750 wells tested in 3 states are unsafe. Officials say a public health disaster can be prevented if people are willing to take simple preventive measures, such as washing their hands frequently and drinking bottled water. Sounds easy enough, but as the floods drag on, experts worry that people will become lax and ease up on time-consuming preventive measures. Dr. Bob Arnott, CBS News, New York.
The same weather system that caused all this rain here in the Midwest has locked up the eastern United States in a week-long vice of steamed heat. An update on the great heat wave and more on the flooding a little later on. Connie?
Dan, up next on the CBS Evening News, another bloody day in the capital of Somalia. Will the UN reassess its role? And in Bosnia, the guns of Sarajevo keep on killing.
When you think about plastic, you may think about things like strong, lightweight garbage cans. Think again about life-saving automotive airbags made of plastic. When you look at these plastic containers, you may wonder if they're being recycled. Take another look. Millions of them are being recycled every day, which we can use to make things like strong, lightweight garbage cans. To learn more, call this number for a free booklet and take another look at plastic.
We could spend all day here.
What if my diarrhea comes back?
You took my Imodium AD caplets.
Imodium AD caplets often work in one dose, unlike the old standby.
Ready?
Before the sunset?
Imodium AD, the choice for one-dose relief.
More and more people are turning to Imodium AD caplets because Imodium AD relieves diarrhea better than other brands, and it's the first caplet to stop diarrhea, often in one dose. Imodium AD caplets, the original prescription for one-dose relief.
U.S. troops spearheaded another assault today against Somali warlord Mohammed Aidid, hoping to smash the power of his armed followers in Mogadishu. National security correspondent David Martin reports, however, that the Somali capital is still lawless tonight and more dangerous than ever.
A nasty situation got worse today in Somalia, a day which began with an air and ground assault by American troops on the headquarters of a chief aide to renegade warlord Mohammed Aidid. Helicopters opened fire first, followed by ground troops who counted at least 13 dead Somalis inside the compound. Then 4 journalists who went to look for themselves were attacked and killed by an angry mob. U.S. officials admit the UN's inability to take back the streets of Mogadishu is rapidly becoming an embarrassment, and that the entire peacekeeping operation is in danger of unraveling. Aidid remains at large nearly a month after the head of UN operations in Somalia, retired U.S. Admiral Jonathan Howe, called for his arrest.
The sooner he's off the street, the safer they'll be. But I don't think he's worth a lot of civilian casualties, either Somali or international troops.
In the meantime, Howe is waiting for reinforcements to his 20,000-man force and planning a massive disarmament operation.
If necessary, we will disarm the city with the use of force, and this will, I think, create much greater stability.
But members of the peacekeeping force are going their separate ways, following commands issued not by the UN, but their own governments. Last week, Italian troops went out on patrol on their own and had to be rescued from an ambush. Pakistani troops now refuse to participate in any operation which depends on the Italians for backup. Officials in Washington are determined not to solve these problems simply by turning the operation over to American troops. 2,000 U.S. Marines aboard ships offshore tonight are steaming away from Somalia, toward home. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
U.S. combat troops have taken on another risky mission in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. The main force of 300 Army Rangers arrived today to join U.S. peacekeepers trying to contain the war in the Balkans. Macedonia is right next to Serbia and is threatened by 60,000 Serbian troops across the border. In Bosnia today, Serbian forces launched another barrage against defenseless civilians. Veteran war correspondent Bob Simon said the bloody aftermath in Sarajevo, and we must warn you, the pictures in this report are graphic.
The Americans were in Macedonia, and the Serbs were shelling Sarajevo. This round landed conveniently just 100 yards from the city's largest hospital, so the dead and the wounded didn't have far to go. An old woman riddled with shrapnel. A young girl dead on arrival. Put her next door, the doctors shout. There's no room here. A 13-year-old girl named Aida with a chunk of metal in her brain. Don't worry, nothing happened to you, the doctors lie. You'll be all right. It's just another day in the emergency room of Kosovo Hospital. It's been like this for more than a year. But for the last week, there's been no electricity and no running water. Everything is done by hand or by foot. Surgical gloves are dried off and used again. The front line is less than half a mile away, and by noon on this rather ordinary day, this city hospital was looking like a MASH unit. By 2 in the afternoon, the morgue had received a dozen new arrivals, while outside, people were risking their lives for a bottle of water. The Serbs are now using water in their campaign to destroy Sarajevo. They've turned the taps off. There's no running water in town. And when people stand on line by the river or by wells to fill up plastic bottles, the Serbs open fire. That's what they did here this afternoon. One mortar round. 11 people died instantly. The wounded were brought to Kosovo. This teenage girl lost one leg up to the hip. She was in grave danger of losing her life. She was brought to a room which until last week was an office. It's an operating room now because it has windows, so there is light. The doctors finally managed to stop the bleeding, but then they had trouble finding her pulse. After an hour, Dr. Kapitanovich said, her heart's still beating from time to time, but we've lost her.
She was, very young and very strong,
Does anyone know her name?
No. We don't know her name.
She died quickly, this girl with no name. Sarajevo is going slowly. to the grave embarrassment of all those countries who've decided to let it happen. Bob Simon, CBS News, Sarajevo.
Stay with us for much more CBS Evening News live from New York and from the banks of the mighty Mississippi, including the deadly heat wave of 93. Little relief and no mercy.
Tonight's forecast, freezer burn. You need Ziploc brand freezer bags. Only Ziploc has the gripper zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping. Locks freshness in, freezer burn out. I'm freezing my rump roast. Ziploc has the lock on freshness.
When it comes to great resorts, nothing beats a Carnival cruise. All your daytime fun, all your nighttime shows and entertainment, and all your foods included too in one low price. Reach, what are you doing here?
You have to ask.
I think I do have to ask.
I mean,
yes.
after all these years, I bet you could see me now.
It must be working, huh?
Working on me.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
All right, Kathy, it's a fun shit.
The fear of bad breath. The threat of plaque. The menace of the gum infection. Gingivitis. Only one leading mouthwash protects you against all three. Only one. Listerine Antiseptic. It's there to protect you.
Day after day, you make those glasses of thick Metamucil disappear. Why not make them all disappear with FiberCon? Doctor-recommended FiberCon gives you the same fiber regularity in tablets.
Easy-to-swallow tablets.
Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
The struggle against floods in the Midwest and a killer heat wave in the East. Blood, sweat, and tears. Dan Rather reports on an all-new 48 Hours, Wednesday.
President Clinton will be getting a briefing from Vice President Gore this evening on the fact that the worst of the flooding is still to come here in the Midwest. Mr. Clinton is in Hawaii on vacation, his first since taking office. The president got in some golf today at Hickam Air Force Base. Last evening, he took a dip in the Pacific off Oahu with his daughter Chelsea and a couple of her friends. Well, it was about 80 degrees in Hawaii today. That's downright chilly by recent standards in the eastern United States. The area has been stuck in a heat wave, but the end of that may finally be in sight. Correspondent Linda Tyra has the latest from Philadelphia.
The sun rose ominously this morning over the Delaware Valley, generating oppressive heat for the 9th straight day. Emergency medical crews are on overdrive. Philadelphia has reported more heat-related deaths than any other city, 58 and counting, almost all among the elderly.
It's very frustrating to all of us. We know that that most of these deaths are indeed preventable. All right, well, hang in there, folks.
Health Commissioner Dr. Robert Ross says the city counts deaths in which heat plays a significant role. Other cities count deaths in which heat is the only factor. He says the death toll nationwide is probably higher and says some elderly victims are only now being discovered.
The medical examiner's office and investigators who go to pick up the bodies often describe the homes as being hotter than hell, hotter than Hades, temperatures of 110, 115 degrees in the homes.
Part of the problem is a lot of the elderly here live in old row houses like these, which turn into brick ovens during the summer. And many of the elderly have no air conditioning and are shut-ins, which means there's no escape from the heat. People like Ramon Perez can do little but to strip down to bare essentials. It's real hot?
Yes, it is.
Today, the federal government showed it's not turning a cold shoulder. Health Secretary Donna Shalala checked in on seniors in Washington. But there are some rays of hope. Forecasters predict there could be a break from the deadly heat in the next day or two. Linda Tyra, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, a desperate grab for freedom, bogging down in a floating no man's land.
Hey, you know what they're doing in there? It's great. Red Lobster's got this enormous shrimp platter. You get to mix and match 30 shrimp for just $9.99. You get 30 shrimp in whatever combination you choose of grilled shrimp, fried shrimp, or scampi. Mix and match 30 shrimp into the combination you love best for just $9.99. My son even got a kid shrimp meal for just $2.99. I can hardly wait to come back to Red Lobster and do it again.
Now the original cleaner Prel Green is back. Work. Clean. There's no cleaner clean.
Well clean.
Why brew a pot when you only want a cup? Try Folgers Coffee Singles, made with ground roast coffee and its own filter for one freshly brewed cup. Folgers Coffee Singles, the ultimate one-cup coffee machine.
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
Would you sing I'm a Little Teapot?
No, not me.
I've got a rich, creamy Klondike bar.
I'm a little teapot.
Come on.
Short, stout.
It's a Klondike.
Here is my handle. Here is my spout.
Oh, here you go.
Here is my...
For that chocolatey coated ice cream loaded big and thick, no room for a stick. What would you do for a Klondike bar?
You can put your spout away now, sir.
I'm Harry Smith on the banks of the swollen Mississippi River. We will have full coverage of the flood of '93 live tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
A major earthquake shook the Sea of Japan today and sent waves of destruction crashing into the shore. The quake was centered 50 miles off Japan's northernmost islands. Hundreds of buildings collapsed and burned on one island, and others were swept away by the tidal waves. At least 9 people are known dead, dozens more missing. Off the coast of Mexico, hundreds of Chinese boat people are stranded at sea, unwanted in America, but determined not to be forced back home. Correspondent Bill Whitaker has the latest on their story.
These are desperate people in a desperate situation. After 2 months at sea, the 659 Chinese aliens caught trying to slip into the U.S. have been detained by the U.S. Coast Guard off Mexico since last Tuesday, crammed on 3 rickety ships while the U.S. and Mexico haggle over their fate, and sanitary conditions grow worse by the day.
We apply our best efforts at humanitarian service and try to protect the health and welfare of all the people involved here, not only those out there, but the citizens of the United States.
One woman medevaced to a San Diego hospital said the passengers paid $20,000 each to Chinese smugglers for passage to America. She said she would kill herself if she had to go back. The ships were stopped in international waters 60 miles off Mexico, just south of the U.S. border. But it might as well be an international no man's land. The U.S. says it's Mexico's problem. Mexico wants no part of it.
It's a matter that we're addressing with some urgency. Given the conditions that exist, it is something that we would attempt to resolve just as quickly as possible.
Ever since this freighter full of illegal Chinese immigrants ran aground off New York last month, killing at least 8, the Clinton administration has beefed up coastal patrols to crack down on the estimated 100,000 Chinese who set sail illegally each year, hoping to start new lives in America. Tonight, it's unlikely those now being detained at sea will ever get that chance. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Coming up next on tonight's CBS Evening News, live from Grafton, Illinois, the legacy of Mark Twain in what Huck Finn called a monstrous big river.
If you're concerned about regularity, these are the facts. When asked, 9 out of 10 doctors agreed they would recommend this, a high-fiber diet, and Kellogg's All Bran. So they may not have to recommend this. Finally, some advice from doctors you can actually enjoy. A high-fiber diet and Kellogg's All Bran, doctor recommended, for drug-free regularity.
A night for Excedrin PM.
Daddy said I can.
You're late.
My head aches and I can't sleep.
Excedrin PM, headache medicine, plus it helps you sleep. And rest assured it's aspirin-free.
Ironic, isn't it? While 70% of our globe is ocean, many people don't have enough water to drink. And until recently, there really was no practical way to turn seawater into abundant, pure drinking water. But now, from the Canary Islands to the Caribbean to communities right here in the United States where fresh water is scarce, Dow Technology is making it possible to propose this toast. Here's to your health.
Dow lets you do great things.
Quality results depend on making the right investments. And at Ford Motor Company, that begins with our employees. We invest over $20 million each month in the continuing education and training of our employees, and they, in turn, teach us new things every day. The bottom line, increased motivation and an obsession with quality.
At Ford, an investment in education is an investment in quality.
Ford Motor Company, quality is job one. It's working.
Attention heartburn sufferers.
If antacids work, why do I keep getting heartburn?
You know, frequent heartburn may be a sign of a more serious medical problem. Your doctor has treatment plans that can help.
Frequent heartburn. Isn't it time you talk to your doctor?
Long before there were television cameras, long before there was even radio, Mark Twain gave Americans a vivid picture of life on the Mississippi. He knew a thing or two about floods and once quipped, "There's really nothing good to say about floods except that the streets are quiet." Correspondent Vicki Mabry takes us tonight to the quiet streets of Mark Twain's hometown.
It is pretty amazing.
Hannibal, Missouri has never seen anything like it.
It's a mess.
The river wasn't even this high during the 1973 flood when the water rose 13 feet over flood stage. This quaint little tourist town, the home of Mark Twain, attracts sightseers to downtown and now to the river.
It's higher than I ever saw it, and I've been around here for 87 years.
More than 100 people have been evacuated. The Coast Guard watches their homes. Their ball field is 8 feet underwater. The Coast Guard checks the city's power plant.
If that goes, there's no power in Hannibal.
And the only person left on the flooded south side of town who makes sure the water doesn't turn the lights out on Hannibal.
I can't believe that the river is this mad at us for whatever we've done.
Hannibal's most famous resident, Mark Twain, predicted all the way back in the 19th century that this would happen. When Mark Twain wrote about life on the Mississippi, he never mentioned flooding in Hannibal. That's because when he lived here during the 1840s, there wasn't any flooding in Hannibal. But Twain saw the start of the locks and dams and levees and wrote that the river could never be tamed.
I think he would think very smugly that the river's doing exactly what the river should be doing today, spreading out.
Now, a new $8 million levee completed just last month keeps the river from the historic Twain home, but a crest higher than the predicted 32 feet would bring it to the doorway.
I could cry forever. That'd just make more water in the river.
67-year-old John Large believes, as Twain did, that the river is more powerful than humans. He sleeps with one eye open, watching the river creep toward his house.
I'm gonna ride her to the end. When it floats, I'll have the biggest houseboat on the river.
Twain wrote in the 1880s that nothing could be put in the river's path that it would not tear down, dance over, and laugh at. Hannibal is finding those words more true today than ever. Vicki Mabry, CBS News, Hannibal, Missouri.
Mark Twain and the dancing Mississippi, part of our world tonight. First thing tomorrow on CBS This Morning, Harry Smith will be right along the river live with an update on the flooding. And I'll have more on how the tough-minded people of the Mississippi Valley are coping, where horror meets heroism and hope, tomorrow night.
Until tomorrow, thank you for joining us, and for all of us at CBS News, good night, everybody. Good night, Dan.
Good night, Connie.
Experience CBS